Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session of Right On with Dr. L. Today, we're going to be talking about how to research a topic. Now, that sounds like fun, doesn't it? Well, in order to get practice researching a topic, we have to have a sample topic. So for the purpose of this presentation, our sample topic is going to be natural hair and its ties to self-esteem. Now, the reason I chose this topic is because it is a topic that is very personal to me. And when we choose topics that are personal to us, topics that we have connections to, topics that we don't mind researching or writing about, then the research process becomes fun or more fun. All right. So if your teacher gives you the option to choose your own topic, then you want to choose one that you don't mind spending a lot of time, thinking about, writing about, researching, that sort of thing. So I chose a topic that is important to me. I hope you do the same. First things first, before you begin your research, you have to have a working thesis with strong keywords that you can then take into the research process. But what is a working thesis? Well, in all actuality, a working thesis has the same job as a thesis. It presents the main idea of the paper, or rather, it presents what you assume your main idea is going to be. Because guess what? As you begin the research process, you may see your thesis shifting. It may, expand to include other things, or you may be taking things out of your thesis because your research is taking you in a different direction, okay? So our working thesis for our sample topic, which again is natural hair and its ties to self-identity, is many people view the afro or big hair on African-American women as a tool of protest or a symbol of the angry Black woman stereotype. However, the bigness of Black women's hair is more than a symbol of protesting the status quo. It is a symbol of self-worth and self-identity. So that's the working thesis. Obviously, some things are going to shift once you start to research. You may delete some words, you may add some words, you may expand, you may, delete. It really just depends on where the research takes you. So now we have to determine what are the keywords, okay? So first thing first, afro or big hair. Well, that's natural hair. So we can take natural hair into the research process, or maybe, if we want to expand our research, our terms, we can even add the word afro. African-American women, we can use African-American women as a keyword, but we can also use Black women as a keyword as well. Self-worth and self-identity are also words that we can use in the research process. So guess what it's time to do now? It's time to research. Go research. Okay, so that means it's library time. So for me, it's always good to start at the library, in person or virtually. Everyone knows that Google is the bomb, but so is the library. And that's just not the old school teacher in me. That is the truth. Because the library really is, it can be one-stop shopping if you know the right databases to go to or to search, when you're looking for sources for your topics. Okay, so let's go. First, go to your school's library page. For this presentation, we're going to be using the Texas Southern University Library page. Go Tigers, go maroon and gray, go TSU's English department. Now, once you log on to the library page, you want to click on catalogs and databases. Catalogs and databases, they are awesome, right? Books are great, but some books may be outdated. And you do want to try to find sources that date 5 years back, right? So you can, from the current year, right? So you're in 2020, so you can search 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016. You can even go so far as to search in 2015, but that would be the cutoff, okay? So let's see. Well, what are some good starter databases? For non-literary analysis papers, I suggest Academic Search Ultimate as your first play, okay? If you're thinking about it as a football game, this is the first play, okay, that you should make, all right? Now, on some library databases, it may be called, or this database may be called Academic Search Complete, same thing. Access World News, really good source. eBook Central, a really good source. I love this site, and there's going to be a slide that you'll be able to view in this presentation that shows you the sources, that eBook Central generated when we put in our keywords, okay? And you'll be able to decide if the sources are viable, if we should use them for our paper, okay? Black Studies Center, for our specialized topic, this would be a good source, a good database. And then Opposing Viewpoints, one of my favorite databases, especially when students have to include counter arguments and rebuttals in their papers. The Opposing Viewpoints is the perfect database for that. Now, when you log on to, when you search the Opposing Viewpoints database, let's just say we are searching legalizing marijuana. That's an easy topic. When you type in those words, what's going to pop up is at the top of the page, you will see articles that are for legalizing marijuana. It'll be articles, podcasts, essays, but then underneath that list, you'll see articles that go against legalizing marijuana. So Opposing Viewpoints in terms of writing rhetorical arguments, persuasive essays, argumentative papers, then Opposing Viewpoints, those papers that you have to include a counter argument and rebuttal, then Opposing Viewpoints is a really good database to use as you're researching your topic. So let's start with Academic Search Ultimate and some of our keywords. But before we begin, I do want to say this. It is easy to get frustrated during the research process. Some students will, have a topic, have one or two keywords, they'll go on to a database, they'll type in those keywords, the database won't give them the sources they need, so they're done. And so they'll just, when I say done, I mean they'll give up. They'll either give up or they will say, okay, I just want to choose another topic. Well, when that happens, this is what I want you to know. That not finding sources is not an acceptable reason to give up. You may have to change your keywords and sometimes your working thesis, which is why it is called a working thesis. It works with the research process, not against it. Okay, so the working thesis is not set in stone. It's just a starter point in the game. Okay, it's like the warm-ups before the game. Okay, you're not going to be able to play really well if you don't have a warm-up or a stretch period. So think about the working process, the working thesis as a warm-up period. Okay, so we've logged on to we've clicked on Academic Search Ultimate. We've typed in our keywords, but what I did was instead of self-identity and self-worth, I typed in self-esteem. Okay, just to show you that you can play around with the keywords. Nothing is set in stone in a working thesis, okay? So after typing in natural hair and Black women and self-esteem, you're gonna see the results on the next page. But I do wanna make note that I decided to use their Boolean operators because number one, I'm old school. And number two is that when you use the word and, what you're telling the computer is I want this, this, and this. Okay, so the articles that I want to see on the list should contain these three words. A lot of students will type in one sentence, like they'll have their thesis and they'll type their entire thesis into the search bar, and that won't, generate anything because in that instance, the computer doesn't know what to look for. So Boolean operators are the Boolean operator and is a really good word to use in between your keywords. So after clicking on this, clicking on search, These are the sources that I got back, okay? After I changed the dates of publication between 2015 and 2020, these are the sources that came up, okay? Talking back in cyberspace, self-love and hair care, that may be an article, and there's a link to a full text. There's also the relationship between self-esteem and hair transplantation. That, you know, seems a little off, but there may be something in there in that article. One size does not fit all, using variables other than the thin ideal to understand Black women's body image. I don't know if that one's going to have anything, but the reason why I chose this list is to show you, number one, that you can change the dates on any database. Number two, to show you that this was the first database I tried, and this is the list I got, right? Now, there's no way that I should give up. There's no indication that I should give up after this list. As a matter of fact, if I click on this link, there may be a bibliography or works cited page that I can use that will take me to other sources that I may be able to use for my paper. So you never want to give up after the first try. So next choice, next database, eBook Central ProQuest. Now, for this database, I typed in Black women and natural hair and self-identity. So I switched from self-esteem, okay? Now, when I clicked on search, these are the sources that I got back. But before we see those sources, raise break, because a lot of sources came up when I clicked on search, okay? Let's see what's going on. All right, so these are the sources, and I only screen captured, you know, just a few of the sources. But if we just look at this one, blue veins and kinky hair, hair matters, beauty, power, and Black women's consciousness. These are two sources that may, you know, talk or go into detail about your topic. But if you've been paying attention, then you see this 2003 here and you see 2000 here. Well, guess what? These sources are way beyond the 5-year range. So what does that mean? Does that mean everything is lost? Nope. Everything is not lost. You can do two things. Use an older source to provide history for your topic. Think about this. Black women in the 60s and 70s wore their natural hair for specific reasons, yet as the years went by, negative connotations were placed on the term natural hair. Older sources will help you explain the history of an AA women's hair journey. So you can use those older sources to your advantage by building historical landmarks. What was the hair attitude in the 60s for Black women? Hair attitude in the 70s, and so forth and so on. What are those landmarks? When did things change for women? When did natural hair, when was such a negative connotation attached to natural hair, right? So those older sources can help. Now, number 2 says, if you just want to stick with current sources, then guess what you have to do? Just change the year. If we look at years 2020 through 2015, look at all the sources that were published on topics that dealt with the keywords Black women, natural hair, and self-identity. That's a lot. That's a lot of sources. So it just depends on how you want to use those sources. Now, most teachers, myself included, if you do use an older source, then you can't, that source isn't counted in with the total number of sources that you need for your paper. Some teachers will say, okay, yes, you can use historical sources, but we're going to count the current, I'm only going to count the current sources. So you do want to check with your instructors before you decide to use a lot of historical sources for your papers. Okay, it's time for another praise break. Yes, the sources just keep on coming outside of the library database. Yes. Now we're at our favorite search engine in the world for most of us, and that's Google. Now, Google has a search engine called Google Scholar. It's more academic. You type in the same keyword you would use in the library database into Google Scholar. and just wait for the sources to run free like water, okay? I typed in Black women, hair, and self-identity, and guess what? Some sources came up from 2020, and then 2019, Black Hair is Consciousness, okay, which is the article that we found on the library database. So that's only proof that the library database really is one-stop shopping, okay? But if you want to be specific, if you want to tell, you want to tell the computer, you want to tell Google Scholar to just look for articles during these particular dates, you can sort the dates. You can, sort 2015 or tell the computer 2015 through 2020, okay? Next thing, YouTube. YouTube is such a viable source, okay? They have more than how to make slime videos, lucky for us. So note, I did use the same keywords. I did type in self-worth. That helped a little bit. And once I typed in that, then the documentary by The Root, which is a really good source, a reputable source, a documentary that they put out in 2017 called Black Women's Hair and Untangling Its Cultural Identity popped up. And so did a lot of other videos. But you do want to make sure that YouTube is a place where everyone can be a star and everyone's opinion can be heard. And because of that, you do want to be a little bit picky in what you decide to call an effective source, okay? The Root is a good source. It's a reputable source. So it is something that I would use in my paper, versus something from TMZ.com. I mean, what is that? But YouTube, documentaries on YouTube are also good sources. Now, this is my favorite source, TED Talks. TED Talks are amazing and they're not very long, right? So when I typed in Black women in hair, I even left out self-identity and self-worth and self-esteem. I left out those words. And guess what? The Psychology of Black Hair, A Celebration of Natural Hair, and a plethora of other TED Talks came up. So, TED Talks is another source that you could use to help you find sources for your papers. Okay, research is not hard. All you need is patience and a working thesis with strong keywords, a willingness to shift the keywords and your working thesis if you have difficulty finding sources. Use a library database. It really is one-stop shopping. If you have time, click on that link. It is a really, really fun example of one-stop shopping. But after you've done these things, had your chuckle at the scene from My Cousin Vinny, then you should communicate with a librarian. Most libraries have a chat button. How cool is that? A chat button on their website where you can click on that button. You can chat with the librarian right then and there, or you can set up a virtual conference with the librarian. Okay, so research is only as hard as you make it. If you do all these steps, you will be fine. Okay, now it's time to research. So go out into the virtual libraries in the world, go out into Google Scholar, go out into TED Talks and YouTube and find those sources for your topics. This has been a presentation of Right On by Dr. Lancaster. Have an awesome day.